Hull materials. There's so many differing opinions on which is the best one, but in reality, they all have their pluses and minuses. Now, instead of me just talking to you guys about the different types of hull materials, I decided to interview people who have those boats and cruise on them and live on them full time and know those hull materials through and through. So in today's episode, we're going to be looking at wooden hulls.
I just feel comfortable with a wooden boat. I spend my life working on fiberglass boats and aluminium boats and all sorts of other different structures and materials. And I'm always happy to get home to Sanchia. She's just cozy. My name's Steve Jackson. This is my boat, Sanchia, built in Littlehampton, England in 1966. The reason I chose a wooden boat, part of it was economics. Part of it was the skills and tools I carry with me. I'm a carpenter by trade, so having a wooden boat wasn't as scary for me as it would be for most people. I find it to be charming, alive, people like it, I like it. It's kind of like having your own antique. As a complete home, it's an antique. If I go across an ocean and I might hit something, generally you will split a plank. It will generally be pushed inside the boat. You have very little choices but to stuff rags and whatever you can in that crack, get the boat leaned over and maybe try and attack it with something, maybe an exterior canvas. It's one of those, but at least when you get somewhere you know you can repair it yourself. It's a 38-foot boat, it's quite narrow. Hilliard were notorious for building narrow boats. It was designed as a family motor sailor, so yes, it does rely on the motor quite a lot in light winds.
What's the displacement?
Displacement of 13 metric tons.
So what are the positives of a wooden hull?
In this climate, especially in the Mediterranean, when you start heading south, there are disadvantages because it will get hot and start to crack above the waterline. There's a lot more maintenance with wooden hulls. Advantages, I don't think there is any advantages over modern materials. I think it's a traditional thing that you choose and you've got to be comfortable with it and not scared of it. I really truly feel there is no real advantages over the modern materials we have now. I can't get the hull speed or I can't travel the distances modern boats can. But when it gets blowy, when it gets a bit nasty, that's when she comes into her own, that's when she settles down, that's when she wants to go. And that's when the lighter, more modern boats tend to fail. So I think her weight is a good thing to have. She carries 400 litres of diesel, 400 litres of water, that's nearly a tonne on its own, which keeps you going for a long time. So to be honest, to be brutally honest, there isn't any advantages to having a wooden hull, except your own preference.
And what are the disadvantages of a wooden hull?
All the above that I've just...
Yeah. So you got, worms,
well, you can.
Rot.
You can have rot. You can have infestations of rot, depending on what climate the boat's been living in. It is constant maintenance. You don't stop. You think you've come to the end of it, you start again. Which is, to me, I like it. I like doing that sort of stuff. I like it. I like keeping it nice and bright and all that sort of stuff. You've got to like doing maintenance. If you're the type of guy who worked in an office for the last 30 or 40 years, and your good lady wife did the same, never used your hands to maintain it, you won't like a wooden boat. You'll be constantly paying someone to paint it and keep it. I'm lucky, I can do it all myself. And I like it, I enjoy it. So there is another thing with like having a wooden rig, wooden mast and boom. I mean, if I lose a mast, I can make a mast. Wherever I hit landfall, I can buy a tree. I can make a mast and a boom. That's another positive point, but that's getting away from the hull structure. The rig on this boat is galvanised steel. It's not stainless steel. It's galvanised, old school galvanised steel rig, which is you can tell when it's going to break a long time before it breaks. That to me is an advantage. I don't know, people might think it's ridiculous, but when I'm cooking pork chops, I save the fat and I mix it with a little bit of varnish and I paint the cables and the bottle screws.
I was going to ask if you put slurry, yeah.
And I quite like doing it, And so no, I mean, it's just a charming old thing.
Yeah.
When you've got a classic boat, it attracts classic people. That's another good thing. You get talking points no matter what harbour you go into. Someone will come along and go, oh, wow, that's, you know, blah, blah, blah. And of course you start talking about it, which is good.
That's actually how I got here right now.
Yeah, and wow, wooden boat, what are you doing? You're mad? No, I'm not mad, I'm okay. But, yeah, it's got everything I need, and I can sail this boat so easily by myself. It's not ever a stress out to sail it by myself. It never gets hectic enough for me to think it's out of control. It's not.
And if someone's looking at getting a boat with a wooden hull, things to look for, things to make sure that you spot to avoid?
Also, always inspect a wooden boat out of the water. If it's in the water, get it out of the water. Take a screwdriver with you or a penknife. Don't be afraid to push that screwdriver or knife into the planks, below the waterline planks, especially the garboard planks, which are the two planks closest to the keel. They're the first to go. They always will. If you're getting no sponginess, you might get sponginess on end grain planks. That's not difficult to address, but generally below the waterline, make sure it's sound, and then get in the boat and check every frame and rib to make sure there's no cracks, and also to make sure they haven't been sisted up. Like if one's been damaged before, another one's been put in there. Have a look closely. Another thing I look out with wooden boats predominantly use bronze roves to hold them together. If you find a wooden boat full of stainless steel screws and stainless steel fixings, you don't want it. The stainless steel will attack all the other bronze fixings and your boat will fall apart through electrolysis, which is difficult to believe on a wooden boat, but it still occurs. So this is under the bilge, or in the bilge, I'm afraid, under the sole. We've got loads and loads of extra steel. It's not that the keel on this boat isn't weighted, it is, but in the wisdom of the guys who built it, they advised to weight it down even more. And there you have it. And I think there's probably nearly a ton of pig iron steel in the bilge of this boat, which I've never removed or moved around with or anything. They leave spaces to get to the keel bolts, and that's all I'm interested in. But it works. The boat sits right. In fact, she's sitting a bit high in the water at the moment because she's pretty much empty of fuel, and there's only about 100 litres of water in the tank, so she needs an extra ton on her just to pull her down where she used to be. So this is the way it came, and every other Hilliard I've looked at has always had these in there. So that's just, I don't know, extra ballast as they call it. You can buy a big wooden boat for half the price you can a fiberglass boat, which is, you know, if you're into economics, if you wanted to get on the water but didn't have that massive amount of money to get on the water, you can get on the water with a wooden boat in halfway decent condition, and if you're able or willing, you can make it into a beautiful thing. Plus, we're saving heritage. It's like the people that restore classic cars. If no one did that, we wouldn't have any, and they're beautiful, and so are old wooden boats. So, it's, you know, doing something. And yeah, another good advantage to wooden boats is when it finally dies, it'll just go back into the earth. It won't lie around like a plastic shell. No one knows what to do with it. So it's ecologically sound as well.
Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends.
And if you'd like to follow our journey in real time on a map, receive postcards from our ports of call, and message us directly to the boat, you can go ahead and become a patron using the link in the description down below.